My name is Gary Heidel. I'm the Chief Housing Investment Officer for the Michigan State Housing Development Authority. When you ask me the question, what has Jim Logue accomplished that has major impact on the industry, I could talk to you for hours. But there's one that really comes to mind, and that is he was the key person that created the Great Lakes Capital Fund for housing, which is now referred to as SENER. But Jim had just come in as Executive Director of MSHDA after Terry Duvernay left. It was one of the first things he was briefed on. He thought it was a great idea. He put a team together that included Doug Shelby and Gene Peterson. It was a very complicated process, brought in some advisors, but they worked through that whole process to create the fund and eventually worked to select Mark McDaniel as the first leader. They also, MSHDA provided support to the fund in its beginning stages, which they have repaid those resources. But I have to say that Great Lakes, which has moved on from Michigan, it's become a major tax credit syndicator in the Midwest and even in the east part of the United States, but they have become a major impact in providing affordable housing.
One of Jim's achievements at MSHDA as Executive Director is advocating for affordable housing across our state. And working in Detroit, when I first met Jim, probably about 16 years ago, was a project called Lakewood Manor, which was for transitional women, back then to stay somewhere temporarily, and the state would pay so much per day for them to stay there. And this project was called on the trouble list. They needed a nonprofit to take over. They were removing the nonprofit that was part of the development. And this was early on. I'm happy to report that the project is out of the 15-year compliance, and now we're probably around year 18, and it's still doing great, Jim. So thank you for having the insight years ago to bring more housing initiatives to our city, and for you hanging in there all these years. I am very happy to say congratulations on receiving the Duvernay Award. You deserve it for all that you've done over the past 15 or so years. Congratulations.
Jim is a guy who knows how to make money, that is dollars and cents, sing for human beings. He understands finance, housing finance, in a way that has always inspired me. He understands how money is important for the production of affordable housing. Yeah, but that's not where it stops. He understands how it changes lives. So he has always been willing to be creative.
To me, personally, the greatest thing he ever did was pursue the concept of creating a state equity fund, which became what SENER is today. So, for the impact that SENER has had since that time, it's been both on the residents initially of Michigan, but just me personally, to be able to have him give me the opportunity to start this idea that he and actually Terry Duvernay started the idea. And when Jim came on after Terry left, this is one of the first things he kind of picked up off his desk and said, we really need to keep pushing this idea of creating a state equity fund to bring investment into Michigan, when at that time nobody had any interest in investing in Michigan.
Well, Jim is deserving of this award. I mean, I really can't think of anybody else who is as deserving as Jim. We've had a lot of great Duvernay Award winners in the past. They've all been incredible people, but Jim is someone who has spent his entire career doing affordable housing. I mean, first he was the rental development director in New Jersey, eventually became the executive director at the New Jersey Housing Finance Agency. He went on to HUD to become an assistant secretary under Secretary Jack Camp. He then went to the National Council of State Housing Agencies as their policy director, and then eventually he came to MSHDA as the executive director. I believe he's probably the longest serving executive director of MSHDA, and under his leadership we really did great things during that time. And he's a real national expert when it comes to affordable housing. I mean, he serves with Corporation for Supportive Housing, and he has a real passion for affordable housing, especially when it comes to people with disabilities and people who are extremely low income. He's just dedicated his whole life to this kind of work, and you don't always see that. So, I mean, he's a really good person, and he always does what he says he's going to do.
Jim is deserving of this award because when I look back over the list of the people who have won this award every year, and I'm a former recipient of the award, and the work that we've done collectively, it's just, he's part of that group. I mean, as the ED executive director for a number of years for MSHDA, most of our work around housing would not have happened without his support and the ability to make things happen in the area of affordable housing. And so for that, Jim is deserving to get this award at this time. Great guy, known him for a number of years. When I hear his name, it brings a smile because that's all I know is Jim Logue. And when you said Jim Logue, I start thinking of Mark McDaniel because I remember back when the two of them were working together, and now today they're still working many years later.
You've asked me to comment too on why Jim deserves this award. Well, we all know that housing policy happens in the context of government. In other words, there are different values, there are different opinions, there are different objectives. Guess what? Jim may have come from the Republican side of that equation. But guess what? Politics is not why Jim is in this work. Jim is in this work because he understands the extraordinary importance of decent and affordable housing.
I would say with Jim, there is nobody closer to the example of what the award is about Terry Duvernay and his life and his commitment to affordable housing than Jim Logue. The vision that Jim's had in the personal commitment, and this comes from deep within him, about the commitment to helping people have a better life, is at his core, just as it was for Terry. And when you have that so deep inside of you, you're willing to try and do things that others would never even think about doing. And as a result, he is viewed as a real leader in this whole industry, not just here, but nationally. When you say Jim Logue, they know that you're talking about somebody with a deep heart for the mission of the work that we do and helping people have a better place to live and work.
Through a long sequence of events, I got the opportunity to be exposed to affordable housing, started working at the New Jersey Housing Agency back in 1976. So I've been doing this work for 42 years, and it's exceeded my expectations wildly as far as my life path. So it's been a career where I can honestly say there were very few days that I woke up not looking forward to going to work and doing this. That it's been a remarkable career for me in an industry that has maybe today more need than even when I started 42 years ago. It's about as special as it can be because Terry was such a close friend of mine. My good fortune was to be able to work with Terry for so many years since that time back in 1986. He had a unique ability to make people want to get behind an important issue. It's a very different industry today. When I started, there was significant federal resources available to provide, at the time, what we called decent, safe, sanitary, and affordable housing. That was kind of the way the work that we did was described. As the decades have moved on and budget constraints have continually impacted the federal side, the funding side, it's become more complicated, more difficult to do the level of affordable housing that we did back 42 years ago. There's very strong evidence developed over these years that shows that housing is a critical component to solving a lot of the problems we deal with as a society. And I think there's not been a more exciting time to be involved in the affordable housing community development arena than today, because we know so much more than we did then. And we're starting to get the story out that housing is a critical component to solving these problems.